this is the reason I am interested and familiar at all with this area to begin with. What I can gather is that the smelter was somewhere out in this area here. Is now getting into Upper Clarkdale, where the executives live, and actually you can already tell this looks significantly nicer. That has turned into its own little sort of hippie commune almost. But I'm kind of getting like small little vibes of that here as well, which is super interesting. All right, we are, I don't know where the heck the river is. I'm just off here in the woods, floating along. Welcome to the Verde Valley in the high desert of Arizona. I've been wanting to check out this place for the better part of 15 years, and I'm finally here for a couple of days to check it out. Unfortunately, it's in the middle of the scorching summer heat. So in what I'm expecting to be a multi-part series, we're going to be looking at the three major towns in this area. Clarkdale, which is where I am now, Cottonwood, and Jerome. Three very different towns, each with their own stories and their own culture, but they're all tied together by the copper mining boom in the area here in the early 1900s. In this first video, we're going to be focusing on Clarkdale and Cottonwood. One was a carefully planned company town, much like Daniels that we've looked at before. The other formed more organically, freely, and independently. But together, they both help shape the culture of this river valley that we're in. We're in Clarkdale now, which is actually the company town. So why don't we get the show on the road? Start talking about that now. But we're starting out right here in arguably the central hub of Clarkdale, in the Clarkdale Park, in this little central area here that sort of divides the town into two halves. You can see a residential area over there that we'll talk about in a bit. And there's a couple residential areas at the other end of this area here. But while we're walking over to the first stop that I want to check out here that I think is walkable, let's talk a little bit about this town. So in the late 1800s, mining rights were sold up on the mountain here behind these trees, which is where we're going to go later, and what future became Jerome to start mining copper. But things didn't really take off until the late 1800s, when the mines were purchased by William A. Clark, which is who this town was actually named after. So he bought the town, or bought the mines, in what was Jerome at the time, which again is up in the mountains there. Oh, we can actually see it a little bit. So it's right up there, right above that car. But the mines were inefficient in transporting the ore that they produced from off the mines down basically to the market. And so around the turn of the century, 1900 or so, he built aerial trams to transport the copper from off the mountain there down into the valley here. And then he actually built, I don't know why I turned that around, he then built this rail line here that connected to the trams, that the rail line then went off and out and over, I believe, to the town of Drake, which connected to the main Santa Fe line. He saw an opportunity down here to build a much larger, much more robust and more efficient smelter than the small one that they were using up on the mountain. That one was prone to fires, it was prone to breaking, and he just saw an opportunity to take advantage of this flat area here to be able to expand the production and increase the efficiency of the area. And so while the smelter is gone, I believe it was somewhere in this area. I have looked all over the place. I found a couple Facebook posts with old pictures of it and whatever, but I can't actually find where exactly it was. Yes, ma'am.
I just remembered some plant right here.
Yes.
In the last couple of months, do you know who Ross Coulthard is?
Oh.
He's an Australian guy that does a lot of reporting on UFOs.
Okay.
And he was in Sedona.
Okay, I'm actually going there tomorrow.
Okay, and he did, anyway.
Yes.
You know, Sedona's known for that.
Yeah. I didn't know this area was.
This place is supposed to be owned by like Northrop Grumman or one of those people that does all the undercover building of anyway. So
Yeah.
this has a tie-in. I don't know if you want to do any.
Are you talking about the cement plant here? So is it not really a cement plant?
Well, that's
or it's a cement plant that also may do some other things?
That was the first time I ever heard that.
That's interesting. So, well, really quick here. So this is a cement plant that was built in the 50s after the mines and the smelter were shut down. But that lady just mentioned that there's a theory going around that this cement plant is a cover for some sort of UFO building research or something or other run by Northrop Grumman. I don't have the foggiest clue. I obviously have not had a chance to look into that at all, but that's something interesting. But the smelter, again, back to this, was built somewhere in this open plains area here. And so what we will look at soon, once we're done with this, is there's a couple of communities down here closer to the river that housed a lot of the workers for the smelter. But he built the smelter, built the rail line, and saw this opportunity to build a company town in the same area, essentially just maximizing efficiency. And there's a plaque up here that I think talks about the smelter. That's why I'm walking over this way. But yeah, he saw the opportunity with the smelter to create that, and then saw a chance to build a town around the smelter. And that's where the town of Clarkdale, so the town of Clarkdale here formed in around 1912, I think, and was very much the same concept as Daniels that we talked about before. Owned, operated, managed, overseen by the United Verde Company, the United Verde Copper Company, which was owned by William Clark. And so, actually I found it here. I can't find the actual smelter, but I can find a plaque dedicated to it. And so what I can gather is that the smelter was somewhere out in this area here. And so the way that William Clark set up the town was having this central area that we just walked along here. We're kind of coming up on, again, this area back here. The way that the town is situated, it is geographically on a slope. And so out this direction, slopes down towards the water, and then away from the water, it slopes up. And so there are two residential areas that were formed that became known as Lower Clarkdale and Upper Clarkdale. And they both represent lower as in physically, geographically, elevation-wise lower, but also lower and upper socioeconomic standings in society, I guess, if you will. So Lower Clarkdale, which we'll go look at in a minute, was where all the manual labor smelter workers were housed. And so their housing was much cheaper, much more sort of simplified, efficient, compact. There wasn't a lot of fancy niceties with it. And then Upper Clarkdale, which is on the other side here, on the upside like we talked about, was where all the managers, the executives of the smelter were housed. And those supposedly had nicer houses, bigger lots, more manicured land, because the mines closed in the 50s, the 1950s. I'm curious how much of that original planning that happened in the 1910s, over 100 years ago, still holds true. If we look at these areas, is Lower Clarkdale going to be noticeably more simplified? I don't want to say less good or bad, whatever, but like more simplified. Are we still going to see that in the structure and the architecture? And are we going to see a nicer, sort of more upscale area in Upper Clarkdale? Or over the last 100 years or 75 years since the mines closed, are they going to kind of have evened out a little bit? So let's go walk up through the Main Street area here a little bit. I'll show you what's left of this little small downtown area here. And then why don't we go and drive around and check out those two neighborhoods and kind of see what we can see. But Clarkdale was once a booming company town. But when the mines closed up shop and then the smelter closed and all of that, basically the lifeblood of the town also closed with it. I guess we'll say that. And so what we're going to see when we go down and check out Cottonwood is that area was already established before Clarkdale was even formed, but it was a trading outpost, essentially a place for travelers to stop on their way up the mountain. And so it was not dependent on the mines, on the company town, and the company money, and all of that. It formed more organically. It had a lot of overflow from Clarkdale from people who were not interested in living the company town lifestyle, who wanted sort of more of the open Wild West type way of living. But it sort of did its own thing. It didn't really have the same downward trajectory that Clarkdale did. And that holds true even today. There are numerous other small little towns in the valley here, but Cottonwood is by far the largest still, even currently. And so I mentioned this earlier when that nice lady came and talked to me about the cement plant. But that cement plant opened in the 50s, shortly after the mines closed and the smelter closed. And so that arguably is a big sustaining factor in Clarksdale's ability to still sort of maintain itself in any fashion around here. And we can see that from the populations of both towns today. Cottonwood has a population of 3 times basically the size of Clarkdale. There's only about 4,000 people here and 12,000 people in Cottonwood. And so I'm focusing mostly today on the historic districts of both towns, mainly because once you get outside of that, it just kind of becomes typical suburbs and just that natural sort of modern expansion. And both towns, if you look at it on a map, have essentially blended together. You can't really tell where one starts and the other one ends. But if you look at the historic districts of both, you can kind of get a better idea of where things were. And so let's go and take a look at both of those neighborhoods, kind of get an idea of how they actually look now. Like, what are we going to be able to see? Hopefully something cool. So yeah, I'm gonna hop in the car because I am burning up. All right, and as we come out of town here, we are actually descending in elevation as we head towards the Verde River, but it was lower in terms of socioeconomic standing as well. So when William Clark created these 2 areas, or created this town, he basically originally created them in 2 different areas. This region down here, known as Lower Clarkdale, and then an upper region that we'll look at in a minute. But here, these were all the laborers in the smelter. This was their housing. It was much more cramped styling, less yard space, much more basic amenities, and just sort of housing to fit manual laborers. But yeah, this is part of the historic Clarkdale. But you can still see a lot of the remnants of the old original housing from the early 1900s. And you can see here, even on the map, it's gridded out as an area here, and then up here is the park where we started, and then upper I don't know if that was maybe an old schoolhouse. I'm gonna come down here. There's one area that I want to see if I can find. It's a really small area, but I think it's down here. And so it's interesting. I thought that I could get to it from where we were just over here in Lower Clarkdale, but it's not even connected. I actually have to go back out to the central area and go down separately. So the area that I want to show you is a really small neighborhood called Patio Park, which was actually even a step lower, both in elevation and in socioeconomic standing, even from Lower Clarkdale. And it's where the Mexican workers were essentially segregated in a smaller, even lower standing from even the lower Clarkdale workers. And so this is what remains of the rail line that William Clark built. It's now like a tourist type thing, the Verde Canyon rail. It's like a sightseeing rail line now. I believe there's a coffee shop in there too. So this was the lowest socioeconomic standing neighborhood. And I mean, this is such a small neighborhood back here. It's literally like 2 or 3 streets that me just being back here because there's no outlet is likely going to draw some suspicion. Because you can see here, there's nothing. It's a block or 2 blocks. The city actually has this neighborhood here, a whole redevelopment area or a redevelopment plan in place to sort of revitalize this area. It's actually a tad bit bigger than I expected. And there's a park here that I saw called, I think it's Caballero Park. But I was curious what it looked like in person because I've been looking at it, pictures and maps and stuff. And here's that car that was in front of me. I'm guessing they were probably wondering what the heck I'm doing, which is fine. That's actually a really nice looking park. And so now let's head up to the other side of town, to Upper Clarkdale, to where William Clark housed executives and managers of the smelter to see 75 years after operations closed, see if there are still signs and how it looks. Does it look like it's a slightly more upper class area, or have things sort of evened out a little bit? This just physically was cut off from the rest of town. You can see up there, that is Upper Clarkdale. And now we're going uphill back up to the center of town here, sort of the economic hub where restaurants, bars, and sort of town administrative buildings would have been located. Here's the Central Park again. And then as soon as you cross over this block here where it ends, this is now getting into Upper Clarkdale where the executives live, and actually you can already tell. This looks significantly nicer. I've been looking at this on maps for years, and on maps at least, it does not look that different. But in person, and hopefully in the video, it comes across as being significantly nicer. I mean, look at this. We saw nothing like this down in the other 2 sections. I'm guessing this has to be a nicer socioeconomic area. A lot of these houses have grass, the fences are nicer, houses are nicer, the lots are bigger and more manicured. I am shocked that there is a noticeable difference here. I genuinely expected them to look essentially the same now that it's been 75 years. And look up on the hill there, you can see Jerome peeking out. Yavapai Apache Nation. Oh, I read about this. Okay, so there's a small little subsection down there. That's actually Native American tribe land. Clarkdale, Jerome, let's see, school district? So what is this then? It must be an elementary school. So this is another section of Upper Clarkdale. Oh, when I said grass, I'm guessing a lot of that might have been turf. That's at least turf. I'm going to be curious when I put this together how well the differences come across on video. You can see the styles, the architecture of the houses are a little different. These people, they have to be wondering what I'm doing. Because I've driven by this car here, this Pathfinder, like 5 times. The dude's just sitting in there. So this was the company built, purpose built, company owned, company operated, company managed town. Exactly like what we talked about with Daniels, just with a copper mine. But let's go just a couple minutes down the road and see the contrast to this town with Cottonwood. Again, it's like 800 degrees here right now in the middle of July, so we're gonna have to deal with a little bit of car driving around and all of that. I'll get out and walk around where I can. I'm gonna try to come back when it's a little bit cooler. We're gonna see how this all fits together. Let's make it work. So yeah, let's go down the road and check out the other major town in this area, Cottonwood.